My name is Jane. I'm 32 years old. Precision, accuracy, speed, strength. These are the building blocks of American football, a game of inches often decided by a single moment of perfect execution. It's an intensely visual sport. A quarterback has to read a defense in a split second. A receiver has to track a ball spiraling from 50 yards away. It's all about what you can see. Vision isn't just an asset on the field, it's the entire foundation the game is built on. Now imagine stepping onto that field without it. Imagine the chaos of sounds, the thunder of pads, the roar of the crowd, all happening in a world you can't fully see. Imagine being told from the moment you were old enough to understand that this world wasn't for you, that you were a liability, that you could never survive, let alone compete. This was the world Aaron Golub was born into, with no vision in his right eye and extremely limited sight in his left. He was legally blind from birth. Football, with its fast moving projectiles and 300-pound giants, should have been an impossible dream. And everyone told him so. They told him he'd never make it. They said a blind kid had no place in a sport this visual. But Aaron had a different plan. He didn't argue, he didn't shout, he just went to work. This is the story of how quiet, relentless dedication can silence the loudest doubters. This is the story of how Aaron Golub proved them all wrong. Everyone told me a legally blind kid had no place in a sport as visual as football. They said I'd never make it. They said I'd never survive alone. This is the story of how I proved them quiet. From his earliest days, Aaron Golub's life was defined by a challenge most of us can't fathom. Born legally blind, his world was a mosaic of blurry shapes and fuzzy figures. Simple things that we all take for granted, like crossing the street or finding his way around a new place, were massive challenges. He loved sports, but that love was rarely love returned. He admits he wasn't a natural athlete and was often the last kid picked for teams on the playground. It was a painful, isolating experience that just hammered home the message society kept sending him. You're different and you're limited. Then in seventh grade, something changed. He found football. It wasn't about stardom or glory. For the first time, it was just about being part of a team. He knew he could never be a quarterback or a receiver, positions that require perfect vision. He started out as a lineman, but his time on the field during actual games was basically zero. For years, he was a spectator in a helmet. By his sophomore year, he was a third string player who never saw a single snap. He was on the team, but he wasn't really in the fight. The whispers of doubt that had followed him his whole life grew louder. Coaches, teammates, even his own inner voice wondered what he was doing. Football is a game of instinct, but how can you build instinct without visual cues? How could he block an opponent who was little more than a blur? The world saw a boy chasing a fantasy. They saw a liability, someone who couldn't protect himself, let alone his quarterback. The consensus was clear and crushing. It was impossible. But right there in that moment of being completely counted out, something inside him snapped. He later said, I was sick and tired of letting being legally blind control my life. The constant chorus of no, you can't, and it's impossible became fuel for a silent burning fire. He knew he couldn't change his eyes, but he could change everything else. He couldn't outsee his opponents, but maybe, just maybe, he could outwork them. He decided he wanted to play Division I college football. It was a goal so audacious that people thought he was nuts for even saying it out loud. But Aaron was done listening to other people's opinions. He was ready to find his own way up the mountain, even if he had to carve it out himself. Aaron's turning point wasn't some dramatic movie like moment, it was a quiet, calculated decision. He knew he couldn't be the player who saw everything, so he decided to become the player who did one thing perfectly. He discovered the specialized position of long snapper. A long snapper is one of the most high pressure specialized roles in football. On punts and field goals, their job is to fire the ball between their legs anywhere from 7 to 15 yards with perfect accuracy and speed, all while a defensive lineman is trying to run them over. For a player with perfect vision, it's a tough skill to master. For someone legally blind, it sounds absurd. But Aaron saw an opening. While other positions demanded a wide field of vision, long snapping was all about muscle memory, repetition, and feel. It was a craft he could perfect in isolation, away from doubting eyes. It was a position where he could create his own controlled world. So he started a relentless he training regimen. Every single morning before school, he was in his yard with a target net, snapping a football over and over and over again. An hour of snaps, then school, then hours in the weight room every single night. He wasn't just working hard, he was working smarter. He had to build a level of consistency that was beyond what any other player needed. As he put it, all this work I've been putting in, I need to work 10 times harder to be as good as everyone else and 20 times harder to be better than everyone else. His technique became a marvel of adaptation. Unable to clearly see his target, he learned to measure the distance by the feel of the ground and the posture of his own body. He mastered the exact number of steps, the angle of his feet, the rhythm of his breath. Each snap was a symphony of touch and timing, 1,000 tiny movements repeated until they became second nature. His life became a simple, powerful cycle: snap, lift, study, sleep, repeat. This was the quiet work. There were no cheering crowds in his backyard at 5 a.m., no headlines celebrating his 1,000th perfect snap into a net. It was just Aaron, the ball, and the unshakable belief that this was his path. He was building his success in the dark where no one else could see it. By his senior year of high school, the kid who was always picked last had transformed himself into one of the top-rated long snappers in the entire country. The work was paying off. The impossible was starting to look plausible. Becoming a top-ranked high school player was a huge victory, but it was just the start of a much bigger fight. The next step was Division I college football, the highest level there is. And this is where Aaron hit a wall of skepticism, even tougher than anything he'd faced before. He couldn't count on people believing in him, so he focused on what he could control: his hustle. Aaron started the grueling process of recruiting. He began cold calling college coaches all over the country. He sent out emails, highlight tapes, and letters to every team he could find. And the response? Overwhelmingly negative. For most coaches, the conversation was a non starter. A legally blind long snapper? The idea was dismissed almost immediately. Many didn't even write back. Some were polite but firm in their rejection. Others were just blunt, telling him it was too much of a risk. Each silent inbox and each no thank you was another reminder of how the world saw him. They didn't see a highly rated specialist, they saw a disability. Even when a coach showed a bit of interest, you could feel the hesitation. They'd watch his tape, acknowledge the perfect spirals, but then they'd pause. How would he handle the chaos of a live game? What about a broken play? The questions were endless, and they all came from the same place: fear of the unknown. There was no playbook for recruiting a legally blind athlete. Aaron was an anomaly. He recalls reaching out to some schools 5 different times, refusing to take their silence as a final answer. The rejection was constant and demoralizing. He had outworked everyone, perfected his craft, and become one of the best, But the door stayed shut. This was his biggest setback. It wasn't a missed snap or a lost game. It was the systemic disbelief of an entire institution. He had proven he could do the job, but he was being judged on his diagnosis, not his ability. For a moment, it must have felt like all that work, the early mornings, the endless reps, was for nothing. He was looking for just one person, one coach, willing to see past the label and give him a chance. The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. After countless rejections, one door finally creaked open. It was Tulane University, a Division I program in New Orleans. They were willing to give him a shot. It wasn't a scholarship or a guaranteed spot. It was simply an opportunity, a chance to walk on and prove himself. For Aaron, that was everything. But getting on the team was only the first step. Now, he had to earn the trust of new teammates and a new coaching staff. Once again, he was the underdog, the quiet kid with the impossible story. He knew he had to prove himself all over again, not just with his snaps, but with his work ethic in every drill and every sprint. There were new challenges. During one practice, the team had to run sprints on a set of stairs that, because of his vision, he couldn't safely navigate. It was a vulnerable moment, but instead of hiding it, he asked for help. That single act, along with his undeniable work ethic, slowly began to change how his teammates saw him. They stopped seeing the blind long snapper and started seeing Aaron, their teammate, who just happened to be one of the hardest workers on the squad. The ultimate breakthrough came on October 3rd, 2015, in a game against the University of Central Florida. Tulane scored, and the special teams unit was sent actually out for the extra point. Aaron jogged onto the field. This was it, the culmination of a journey that started in the seventh grade, fueled by doubt and forged in relentless solitary practice. The stadium lights were a bright blur. The crowd was a roar. He got into his stance, and the world narrowed to the familiar feel of the leather in his hands and the turf under his feet. He took a breath, bent over, and in one fluid motion, sent the ball spinning perfectly back to the holder. The kick went up and straight through the uprights. In that moment, Aaron Golub made history. He became the first legally blind athlete to ever play in a Division I football game. It wasn't just a statistic, it was a statement. Every person who had ever told him no, every coach who ignored his emails, every voice that said he was a liability, they were all silenced by the quiet thud of a perfectly snapped football. He had survived. More than that, he had succeeded at the very level they said he could never reach. He went on to play for the rest of his college career, eventually being named a team captain his senior year, a final testament to the respect he had earned. He had proven them all quiet. Aaron's impact didn't stop when he hung up his helmet. His journey was never just about playing a sport. It was about proving that limitations are only as strong as the power we give them. After graduating from Tulane and even getting a shot as an NFL free agent, his mission evolved. He had proven the doubters wrong. Now he wanted to empower others to do the same. Today, Aaron is a successful entrepreneur and motivational speaker, sharing his story with companies and teams all over the world. He doesn't talk about football as much as he talks about mindset. He talks about thinking differently, the idea that led him to find a unique path when the conventional one was blocked. He challenges people to reframe their own obstacles, asking them not, "Why is this happening to me?" but, "How could this be happening for me?" This is the core of his philosophy. Adversity isn't a roadblock, it's a detour to a better path. As he says, "I am a strong believer that things don't happen to you, they happen for you." He is genuinely grateful for being born legally blind, recognizing that this profound challenge forced him to develop a level of grit and resilience he might never have found otherwise. His greatest disadvantage became his defining strength. His story resonates far beyond sports because it taps into a universal truth. Internal drive is more powerful than external doubt. Through his podcast, Blind Ambition, and his speaking, Aaron continues to champion this message. He pushes leaders to look past perceived limitations and see the untapped potential in everyone. As his former coach at Tulane, Willie Fritz, put it, he's just a really strong minded, tough kid, and he's really good at his craft. You take for granted what he accomplished because he makes it all look so easy. Aaron's journey is a powerful reminder that the only opinion that truly matters is your own. So many of us are held back by what other people think, but what if we chose to focus only on our own effort and our own goals? If this story inspired you, please share it with someone who needs to hear that their challenges don't have to define them. And in the comments below, tell us about a time you overcame an obstacle that someone else thought was impossible. Let's celebrate quiet work and unstoppable ambition together. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories about people who defied the odds. Aaron Golub's story isn't really about football. It's a story about perspective. It's about looking at a disadvantage and finding an opportunity inside it. He couldn't see the whole field, so he mastered the one position where he didn't have to. He was told he'd never survive in a world built for the sighted, so he built his own, founded on hard work and an unshakable belief in himself. He never yelled back at the critics. He never complained. He just put his head down and did the work, letting his success make all the noise. He proved them all quiet. His journey leaves us with a profound truth, best said in his own words. From a TEDx talk, we are all faced with adversities, challenges, and obstacles, but how you face them is what determines your success. Aaron Golub didn't just face his challenges, he embraced them and showed us all what it truly means to turn adversity into an advantage.